Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm David Yakir.
And I'm Susan Keller-Horn.
And you're watching or listening to Yak About Today in Film, where you never know how the movie ends. So sit back, watch us, or get up, put your headphones on, go for a run, but listen to what we yak about today. Hey again, thanks for listening. I am David Yakir here with Susan Keller-Horn, and we have a very, very special guest who I guess is very familiar to us. And
well,
that
at least
be
to me. So one of the things that everybody should do in life is take advantage of all their contacts. And when one of those people is your brother, you do that. And so we're interviewing my brother, Billy Howerdel, who is of A Perfect Circle, the band A Perfect Circle, as well as the band Ashes Divide. And now he's out on tour with himself alone. Well, not alone. He's got a great band behind him, but it's as Billy Howerdel. And hi, Billy. Welcome to our Yak About Today.
Hello, hello.
We have him on. Nice to meet you too. We have you on. We have you on speaker, and we're throwing pictures up of you because you're on tour. So you're on the tour bus right now. So
yeah, I'm rolling down the road on a tour bus in the back lounge, which is kind of the loudest place for the engine noise and everything else. So hopefully it's good, but better than the front lounge where there's unspeakable conversations going on.
Where are you heading now?
New Orleans.
So
Playing New Orleans tonight.
Oh, wow.
At the House of Blues. Yeah.
Oh, that's an awesome place. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you have how much more time do you have left on your tour?
We have 7 shows, I believe, so not much. We got some big travel days coming up. We got this and then 3 shows in Texas, and Houston, Dallas, and Austin, Phoenix, Ventura, California, and just outside San Diego and Solana Beach. So almost done.
Oh, wow.
Almost done.
Well, I had so much fun seeing you in New York and Philadelphia because, as your sister, that's what I do. I try and follow you around. But anyhow, even though I'm the big sister, we all follow you.
One of these days, Sue, you got to come to a smaller city. The tough part is those major markets, especially New York and around that area. It's just you're so flooded with industry people and, obligations that you have, but also friends and family. It's just it feels like you're, I guess, if anyone's had a wedding, you had a wedding, but you only had about 15 minutes to visit with every single person there. So,
I know it's true.
Uncle, aunts, and friends, and you feel like you're too little butter being spread over too much toast.
Oh, but you were awesome. We had a great time with you. Thank you. But one of the reasons why we're interviewing you is that you're not just a musician. You've been involved in films, both as an actor as well as producing the music, writing the music. And so the one that we had at our festival was called D-Love. And tell us about your involvement with that. That was in 2018. We had you here, and it's such a great film. So tell us about how you got involved.
So D-Love, and now with a name change, right, Shalita, was a movie. So my good friends, Dave and Elena, were telling me about it one day. I remember the pitch they had for me. I went to their place, and they told me about the character and said he was neurotic and, OCD and just, described him very unfavorably and said, you'd be perfect. So I jumped at the chance. But then we started talking about music too, and doing some original score and maybe helping with music supervisor position and, securing songs that were going to go within the film, which it was a lot of work and a great learning experience for me and for them. So, and it was really nice to work with friends who have a clear vision as to what they're doing. And Elena was such a great general, I would say. She had a mission. She knew when to, cut bait and move on, and when to really, turn the screws down into something that really mattered. So it was just nice to have her on her first film feel so solid and it was a nice experience. And it was nice to work with friends where it didn't get weird. I'm sure that could happen.
So when you attended our festival in 2018, and did you go to any other festivals with it, or were we just the only ones?
I did. They did.
You didn't.
They went to many. Yeah.
But they won. They won here. They won the best feature film, and then they went on to win something like 12 more best awards at multiple film festivals. It was amazing. It really was. It was cool.
Yeah, they had great feedback, critical and audience. Just that that movie really hits a lot of great emotional notes. I think it's a really heartfelt, sweet, disarming movie.
It is. And to give everybody a little bit of a background on the story, it's about a couple who takes in a stranger into their home and what they learn from that stranger. And it's really a beautiful, beautiful story. And I know we plan on interviewing David and Elena at some time in the future because they're doing some amazing things now, too. But let's talk a little bit about you and your background and how did you get into music?
I got the exact question.
The exact question.
So this is a conversation Susan and I were having. Obviously, she knows you better. But I read that you were inspired by Pink Floyd, and that's how you really got into music. That was your inspiration. But Susan says no. Susan has another story.
Yeah, I mean, she's right. I mean, it is I'd say the Pink Floyd element is what really propelled me into getting into working for bands, in service of the band, figuring out, going to see Pink Floyd at Giant Stadium when I was a wee lad. I had just already started playing music at that point, but seeing that show and very quickly having to decide whether I was going to go to college, whether I was going to get into a trade or whatever, it just dawned on me, what are those little ants down on that stage doing? That are, I'm up in the nosebleed seats. They must be making a living doing what they're doing. What are they doing? And I kind of knew, but it really just hit me at that moment. I was like, I had just gotten my driver's license, I think right before that, and gone to the DMV and saw the soulless pit of hell that is the DMV with fluorescent lights and miserable people in a job that they just hated, and thought, oh my God, where do I want to be? Here at a venue surrounded by people who saved their money and carefully, got their time allotted to come to this thing, to come together for this beautiful moment, or at a job that I just didn't think I'd want to be in. So I think it was that make or break moment. So it was more about what I was going to do with my career working for bands. And then it segued into years later that I actually, took the dive into making music and making that my career.
But actually, what people that are listening to our podcast don't know how you actually started in the music industry. And I know it was on the Jersey Shore. You were working with bands on the Jersey Shore, and talk about a little bit about that and what it propelled you to do.
So, so starting playing music, I was a late bloomer. I mean, in today's age, right, people start so early. But I started like around 16 years old, just before my 17th birthday. But when I started playing guitar, got into stage lighting within high school. In high school, I was in a class called TV Science, and we put on the local news show at West Milford High School. And you learn a little bit about each job, sound, lighting, newscaster. But I also, that kind of segued into me being the lighting guy for all the plays and assemblies and whatnot. So that just kind of went from when I graduated high school. I took that little bit of knowledge and entered an ad in the Village Voice in New York, which was like the free paper of everything happening cool in the tri-state area. And for a lighting roadie or whatever you want to call it, I got to set up lights for local club bands in New Jersey. And I went there and got my first interview. It was on Route 22, somewhere in the middle of New Jersey. The guy showed me how to, do the particulars for setting up for this band, and I already knew a little bit, so it was okay. And then at the end, I'm filling out the paperwork, and he said, "You're 18." I just turned 18. He's like, "You just wasted 4 hours of my life. Get the hell out of here." He was so mad. It's like, "You're going into nightclubs. You got to be 21." And I could use many expletives if we, But so that was it. Left. long story short, 2 days later, he calls me and goes, okay, the guy just bailed on me. They were supposed to do it. Can you keep your mouth shut? Don't drink in the clubs, you know, this and that. And I go, yes, sir, yes, sir. And then I started doing lighting for that band. And then that really, from working for that band called Ray Anderson and the Fire, which is a little club band in New Jersey in 1988, it just went from, you know, you meet some people that are moving up into the ranks and going on tour and doing that. And I just found myself 2 years later touring the world with many different bands and continue touring to this day.
That is really cool. Well, we're going to take a break. I do want to hear about some of that other touring you did, and then let's just talk about your tour. So we'll be right back.
And we are back. I'm David Yakir here with Susan Keller-Horn, and you're listening to Yak About Today in Film. But before we get back to Billy Howerdel, just want to thank New Vision Eye Center for sponsoring the shows. They've been a friend and a believer of Yak About Today for the last 9 years, so we thank them. And as you know, I would not trust my eyes to anyone else. So if you're in the Vero Beach, Indian River County area, that's who I'd see, New Vision Eye Center. Take it, Susan.
Hey, Billy, we're back.
All right.
And I get to ask you questions people don't really know to ask about. So one of them that I wanted to ask about was, I remember that when you were working down in Asbury Park and working with different bands, I remember you used to be on a softball team, and you had some famous musicians play on your team.
Yeah, well, I'm not even a full team. I mean, I remember playing in a, you know, charity or whatever. There was games going on, and there was lots of famous local Jersey celebrities, one of which was Bruce Springsteen and I think Bon Jovi. You know, but yeah. So it was wild. It's kind of a blur. That was a long time ago.
I know. I ask you things that you've told me in the past, and you don't always remember everything. You're like, really? I said that?
But why was it a blur?
Yeah. I was a good boy.
He was.
Yeah, this is too much information. I only have so much room.
I wish I had more time to talk with you. We have about, I guess 10 more minutes we can talk about the different things. So actually, after you left New Jersey and started working with different bands, you were with a whole bunch of different people. I know Smashing Pumpkins, David Bowie, Nine Inch Nails. I remember, like, one of the really cool things you told me about with David Bowie is you were, I think, in Japan, and he invited you to go play on something that he had to do. What was that?
Oh, yeah. It was actually London.
Okay.
We were in Europe, and we were getting up to London. He got commissioned to write music for, I don't remember what it's for. It was task specific, and it might have been a commercial. It might have been a movie, but it was a song that they wanted something a la Heroes, you know, something like the David Bowie song Heroes. And so I went in with Reeves Gabrels, his guitar player, who I worked for, and David asked me to play bass on it, which was really, it was so cool. I mean, it was, and seeing his lightness in the studio. So, you know, sometimes we see these heroes from afar, or I see my heroes from afar and go, like, I wonder what it's like really under the hood of working with them. And I could say David Bowie, from knowing him in the limited personal capacity, he's everything that you would think he would be. You know, he's smart, curious, gracious, kind, you know, strong. He was just that kind of odd force of nature. And in the studio, in creation mode, I think he was just, it showed like, I don't know, it just showed me that didn't have a frazzled thing. It was just like building upon what you're good at and going with that. You know, it's not like not a chameleon of all things. He's good at what he does. And I was like, oh, okay, like maybe I could find my lane moving forward. And I think that's the best thing about artists and being inspired by their process. You know, it's the most interesting part.
I would say that he's probably someone who inspired you quite a bit, but also I remember you worked with Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails, and what was that like? And I know he's had some influence on your career as well.
For sure. I mean, Trent, I'm in the home of where, you know, when I started working for Nails, they had a studio here in New Orleans, so it feels like I'm in Nine Inch Nailsville, even though they're all relocated out west now. Yeah, Trent, the best thing about Trent is he never expected anything from you that he could do, which was a lot. So for sure. No, he was, creative, a great performer, but technically he could rip the computer down and lay it out on a blanket and put it back together. He knew the way the hardware worked, how the software algorithm worked, and how to get what he needed to make the art possible. And so I just, that's also good to have that kind of role model. I think that, at least for me, because I have both sides of my brain, I don't know which one that I have stronger. I've just, probably not one more focused than the other, the left and right brain. I like the creative, I like the technical, and that was just a really good role model for me to have. And that would, we'll get into it, but I don't know, we don't have much time, but composing for film, I think that's a great example of where you need both those minds. You have to be, you're your own engineer, you're mostly working solo, unless you're Hans Zimmer or something. You have to quickly switch gears, and you are in service to the film. That's what I kind of loved about working on Toledo, was working with Elena and just being there for her to move the film forward. And it's a great thing, because you're not on the ego stroke of making your own music. You're in there to move the narrative forward, and just it's a really cool thing if you allow it to be.
And so now you're on tour yourself right now. You are traveling all over the country. You have about 2-3 weeks left.
Yeah.
And tell me about your music now, what you're currently working on. It's a lot different from A Perfect Circle. It's different from Ashes Divide, and tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so this started as the second Ashes Divide record, which Ashes Divide was my solo project, or a moniker I used as my solo project in 2008 for one release. And so I was making a second record, and it was really called Ashes up until a few months ago. And it was different enough that I think it warranted a name change. And it was like a fateful dinner I had for my birthday last year, that I went out with 3 other musician friends of mine, all of which have solo records. And one was Josh Freese, who played on my record and played on all the ABC stuff. And Josh is, Google him if you don't know who he is. He's the I don't know.
He's amazing. He's an amazing drummer.
Drummers. Yeah. He's with everybody. He's not exclusive, but he's Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains and Greg Pucciato from Dillinger Escape Plan. They all kind of convinced me to take the leap and use my own name, which I don't know. So the way we grew up, and not that it was oppressive, but I just never really thought I had, it's weird to say, permission, or that it was okay to use something with your own name. I guess I just thought hiding behind a moniker was the only course of action. And I kind of, the way that they spun the idea of that, I'm using, promoting yourself and standing proud behind just your name, it was a different look for me. So, Greg summed it up well. He goes, when I hear you leave me a voice message, this is the voice on this record that you just made that's on that record. When I hear Ashes Divide, I hear you as a character doing something else. And so this record that I just made is called What Normal Was. It's just under my name, Billy Howerdel. And it's trying to find my voice as to where it was going to land, and that literally and figuratively, like where it's going to be in range. I feel like it's a more genuine representation of who I am, and just lyrical content, and being, an experience going through life and everything. And it really is a love letter back to my 13-year-old self. This record was written in the time of my kids were 11 and 14 at the time when I started this record, and it was like writing music as that time in my life, which was 1981 to 84. Having 4 older sisters, Susan, you're one of them.
Yes, I am.
It was that time of going from, you're not now listening to your older siblings' records. You're finding your own way, defining your own path. And I think that What Normal Was, for me, musically, was this thing that I was searching for within music. And I finally was able, now I've got the means and know-how to make a record that I would impress my 13-year-old self with.
Well, I love the album. It is great. It's a little softer in the album than what you tour with, because your tour is a little bit harder. The music's a little bit harder. And how do you come up with that idea, like what you want to do and where you want to be?
I think tours always kind of translate with more energy. Having live drums on stage is something that you're always trying to chase sonically. And so even when you sing, there's a lot of vocal passages on this record that I'm barely whispering. I mean, it's the same amount of breath I go to sleep with at night. And so when you're trying to keep up with a live drum kit, you inevitably kind of switch your position. You change your diaphragm, you change your kind of projection. So that just, I think, happens. And then, okay, well, let's make the guitars have a little bit more testosterone and bring it up to the bass line of where the drums were. I guess it's that. I mean, a lot of tours are like that. I think a lot of live music is like that. Just have the impact. It's nice to kind of give it a different flavor. And that flavor usually is heavier.
Well, you are my favorite brother. My only brother.
I don't know if I always was.
Well, yeah, maybe not. Some days you weren't, but no, really, it was so much fun growing up with you. But I have so much more I want to ask you about, but I really need you to tell everybody where they can hear your music and where they can find you on tour.
I mean, the easiest place is billyhowerdel.com, right? That's everything, links, music, tour dates, and all that kind of stuff is there. And eventually I got to put the acting stuff on there. We didn't really even get into that, but I've done a few acting parts. The last thing was called Warning.
Oh, that's right.
Directed and written by Agata Alexander. And I flew to Warsaw, Poland to film that movie years ago. It's been 5 years, and it just came out. It just got released this past fall.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know.
So I got my secrets.
Is it? Hey, Billy, is it online that we can watch it, or is it in theaters? Where is it?
Yeah, I believe so. I want to say maybe Amazon Prime. I'm not sure. You can go to my IMDb and see it, but it's called Warning.
Okay.
And I have a scene with Alice Eve, if anyone knows who she is. She's a great actress, and it was fun. It was a long trip for a short scene, but it was fun.
Hey, Billy, we're going to go any second now, but I loved listening to the two siblings talk, right? Because Susan talks about you all the time, and I can't wait to meet you in person.
Well, you'll just have to be in another film at our festival.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Billy.
All right. Thanks, guys. It was great talking to you both.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.